When you look carefully at nature, you might see a little magic. My name is Keely, and I'm an educator at the Clark Art Institute. And this summer, the Clark is hosting a special exhibition about an artist named Nikolai Astrup, someone who brought the magic of nature into his art. Nikolai Astrup's home in Norway, with its forests, mountains, and meadows, wasn't too different from the types of landscapes that we see here in western Massachusetts. Nikolai Astrup enjoyed exploring enchanted places both in real life and through the pages of books. One of his favorites was a collection of folk tales called Tales of Norway. It was originally published almost 200 years ago, but you might be able to find a newer version today at your favorite bookstore or local library. Even if you've never read or heard any Norwegian stories before, they might seem a little familiar to you. Like many folktales from around the world, these stories feature clever and creative characters who interact with magical creatures of all kinds, like a polar bear who's a prince in disguise, or a generous griffin, or giants and trolls both friendly and fierce. In Norwegian folklore, ordinary people have extraordinary relationships with nature. They move through mountains, travel with the wind, and make conversation with the moon. Perhaps these stories inspired Nikolai Astrup to combine the wonder of the world around us with the whimsy of what we can imagine. In his art, you'll see many forms and figures that seem like they live somewhere between the boundaries of fantasy and reality, like a tree that Astrup called his willow goblin, or tall, solemn grain poles with eyes that follow you across the field, or a friend's face immortalized in a mountaintop. Many of Astrup's paintings and prints depict his home or other local sites and settings nearby. So it's almost like he used his art to bring a little extra enchantment into the places that he knew best. You can bring out the magic of the landscapes near you by making what some people call a fairy house, a tiny structure crafted of natural materials that might look home-like to a fairy, gnome, troll, or really anything that you can imagine. Now, Norwegian folklore is full of fantastical buildings, like cavernous underground palaces, or cozy cabins made from tree branches, or tiny homes that float through the sea on driftwood. Nikolai Astrup didn't depict any of these fantasy houses from the stories that he loved in his art, but in his art you will see sturdy storehouses and comfortable cottages, many surrounded by beautiful gardens. As you design your fairy house, you can take inspiration from the buildings in Astrup's art, the magical places of Norwegian folklore, or invent something entirely new. To get started, take a walk around your favorite natural spot to look for supplies. Make sure that it's okay to gather natural materials there, and that you or whoever you're with knows which plants might be dangerous for you to touch. Consider using a basket or a bag to carry everything that you collect. Try to seek out whatever nature wants to share with you, like branches or twigs blown down by the wind, or stones on the forest floor, or leaves or flowers that have fallen off of trees. Acorn caps and other tiny treasures are a great way to decorate, and if you live by the ocean, you can include some shells too. As you build, try to imagine a story about who or what will live in your house. How do they spend their time? What do they look like? At the end of the 19th century, when Nikolai Astrup was a little boy, many artists and even scientists were desperate to figure out exactly what fairies and other magical creatures looked like. But the truth is, we can never be exactly sure about anything magical, even nowadays. So you can imagine your fairy house inhabitants looking and acting however you like. Maybe the fairies who live here look just like you, or maybe they have a few magical features like wings or scales. In Norwegian folklore, some trolls look just like ordinary people, while others have claws or tails or are taller than a mountain. What kind of magical being do you think would call your house home? And what sort of features or furniture would they need to stay comfortable? When you finish, be sure to take a photo or draw a picture before you head home. Fairy houses don't last forever, but you can always come back to check up on the one that you've built or build a new one. And if you've made your fairy house in a public place, it'll be a wonderful surprise for anyone who's lucky enough to see it. Parks, gardens, and yards are all fantastic places to build a fairy house. I wish I could visit all the fairy houses out there. But in the meantime, you can share your photos and stories with us on our website. Get inspired by Nikolai Astrup's visions of Norway by visiting the exhibition in person or online. And if you're able to come see us at the Clark, we invite you to build a fairy house somewhere on our trails. We can't wait to see what you create.